Welcome back, everyone. So we'll be beginning this session, this webinar, CryptoNext Security webinar on the evaluation of the impact of PQC. And the objective of today is to understand why engaging in pilot projects is absolutely a must-have in your PQC migration process. So I'll be hosting today. I'm Charles. I'm an engineer at CryptoNext Security, and co-hosting today. I'm very excited to introduce you to Morgan. Hello, Morgan.
Hi, Char. Yeah, thank you. So I'm Morgan. I'm a cryptography engineer working at CryptoNet Security, and I've been working especially on the deployment of the POC with customers.
Great, thank you, Morgan. So just before we start, a few words of introduction about CryptoNext Security, which is the company that hired us. So we are a pioneer and a European leader in post-quantum cryptography. The great news I want to share to you is that we have received a validation by NIST on our PQC implementations, and we are the first in the European Union to receive this validation for all the three standardized algorithms, so MLChem, MLDSA, and SLHDSA. So that's very exciting news. On the bottom right-hand corner, you can see all the people with which we have been working in the past few years. So mainly in the banking and financial sector, defense, aerospace, public sector, and others. And with all those very prestigious names, we have undergone proof of concepts and pilot projects that have eventually helped them understand what were the problematics with PQC, how that impacted their infrastructure, their use cases. And so we believed it could be really great if we could deliver a message to a broader audience and give all the lessons learned during all those projects that have been running for years now. What will be our agenda today? First, a few words of introduction about what's coming ahead, what's really coming closer and closer as time goes by, which is, of course, the quantum revolution. Secondly, we'll try to understand why doing pilots is so important in your PQC migration process. Then we'll go through three, I think, use cases related to the proof of concept we have deployed at our clients. And finally, the lessons learned after we deployed those use cases, and then some Q&As. So first, turbulences ahead. I have decided today for this webinar to take kind of a risk angle to show you that both likelihood and severity of the quantum risk are at stake here. So as for some of you that have done some risk assessment, you know that risk is the product between likelihood and severity. And we'll see that on those two lines, those two avenues, well, the quantum threat is pretty important yeah, you'll have to tackle this sooner or later, and the sooner the better. So regarding likelihood, well, you may know that in last August 2024, the American Institute for Standardization has standardized three post-quantum algorithms, one key exchange and two signatures. And so from now on, the industry has standards. So no time to say that those solutions are not industrialized, that they are still at the kind of development phase. No, we have standards. And on the other hand, on the other side of the timeline, we have a date, which is 2035. It's a date at which the NIST has said it would no longer allow all cryptography, so based on RSA or elliptic curves. And so that this will have tremendous impacts on security certifications, on the equipments, cybersecurity equipments that you have today. And so it's absolutely crucial to conduct your post-quantum migration between those two dates. And today we are in 2025, sorry, so 10 years left. It's coming really quickly. So again, the sooner the better. And I'm talking about the US here, but of course, all the Western security agencies are aligned on the fact that you should start today your evaluation, your discovery in all the different post-quantum phases that are ahead. Now going back on moving on, sorry, on severity. So likelihood done. It's very likely agencies tell you that you have to move now. Now regarding criticity, well, sometimes cryptography is seen as a kind of geeky thing, which is very far away from business concerns. But the thing is, when you think about it, when cryptography is down, well, all the security falls apart because cryptography is the root of trust of your organization. All your IT infrastructures and above it, all the business domains lie on the fact that the cryptography is robust. As soon as cryptography breaks, well, very important consequences. Digital signatures no longer prove anything. Anyone can read your confidential data. Anyone can impersonate a valid user into your network. Reputation is damaged. Costs are huge. So, as soon as cryptography is down, everything falls apart again. And unfortunately, the quantum computer here is in good motion to really break current cryptography, RSA and elliptic curve. So if we do nothing, it's the whole building that collapses. And just another slide to just show you how intricate your systems are and how diverse the uses of cryptography is. So it's not, just a problem for HSMs or very specific cryptographic hardware, like also crypto tokens. No, cryptography is everywhere. You got cryptography in your application, both proprietary or off the shelf. You got cryptography in your communication servers to communicate with the internet, with often crypto software running here. You got cryptography in your certificates to authenticate your servers. You got cryptography in the protocols to make sure that distant servers can communicate between one another. And so, yeah, cryptography is everywhere, and it's important to make sure you figure the extent of the changes that will have to take place before 2035. So we've seen that the risk is huge because both likelihood and severity are very high. And so the approach we are focusing on today is to say, okay, this is quite an issue. This has systemic implications. How do we start? Where do we start? And what we say is that we should start with pilots, small projects that will make you understand and figure out what will be the priorities, what will be the problems that you may face. And so this phase is to us of utmost importance. So I'm just going to give you 3 examples of why learning about PQC is so important. The first one is the fact that with PQC, cryptographic objects are just huge in size and they're going XXL. So this is a big table of figures. What you have to look at is the fact that you see at the bottom the 2 orange lines. They recap the sizes of keys and signatures, for instance, for both RSA and elliptic curve cryptography. And you can see that for elliptic curve cryptography, for instance, we are talking dozens of bytes. If you look at MLChem or MLDSA, for instance, the order of magnitude is closer to 5,000 bytes. So, it's not simply doubling or more. It's three orders of magnitudes more. We are going from a 32-byte private key to for MLDSA level 5, for instance, 5,800 bytes. So the change is enormous, and this will have great implications on your constrained embedded systems. For instance, you've got to make sure that there's enough room to make the computations, enough room to store all this data, and then on your network too, you got to make sure that the latency, that all those transiting data will add up to your network is supported by your infrastructure. So again, objects are going very big XXL. Second thing is that we are moving from a one-fits-all model. I'll just explain myself. Beforehand, before PQC, RSA, for instance, was able to do multiple things, key exchange, signatures. Today, we have several algorithms that each have their own use cases, and so you've got to make sure that you're getting better and better at understanding what are your use cases and what is the algorithm that fits your needs. You cannot just rely on your security providers. You've got to make sure that this is clear in your head and that you make specifications that are aligned with your needs. And so, for instance, you got some algorithms that provide you know big keys, but not so big, that are able to sign data, sign certificates. And on the other hand, you've got algorithms that are providing huge keys in size, but that are very useful for code signing or CA, for instance, for all those use cases where you don't have to make those keys and signatures transit too much on the network. So it's really important that you get all those figures in mind. And third example is the certificate formats. So you know that certificates are of utmost importance to make sure that all your servers are authenticated and that a malicious actor doesn't impersonate a server that could cause a lot of harm in your networks. And well, the problem is that before we had one beautiful certificate that was the X5099 embedding, RSA or elliptic curve cryptography. Today, you got a choice between several models, and not all of them, to say the least, are standardized. You got choices between, for instance, pure PQC at the top of the table, which is maybe the most simple, but if it's just PQC, of course, your old infrastructure that only reads RSA or elliptic curves, this infrastructure is not able to read those certificates. It's not retrocompatible. You got some retrocompatible certificates like the hybrid catalyst, which is a standard, an ITU standard. So this is great because it can, just flow on your current infrastructure. But the problem is that the PQC key is embedded into a non-compulsory extension. And so it provides you with a false feeling of security, because maybe your current infrastructure just reads the traditional key. And then when you step up to support PQC, you never know if the PQC key is really read or not. On the other hand, hybrid generic composite or hybrid explicit composites, which are in the multi-algorithm family, well, in those certificates, the two keys are bound, so you have to verify both of the keys. But again, it's not retrocompatible, so there's a problem with compatibility with your former infrastructure. So again, all those formats, you've got to test them. You've got to understand what suits best in your case, and POCs and pilots are a good way of doing that. Just an example to show you that even the big ones, even the GAFAM, struggle in a way to not to implement. They got all the researchers in the world to do that, but actually to make PQC a viable industrial solution. Let me give you an example. Today, if you connect to a Google server, you can see, if you go to the settings, that the key exchange is done using hybrid key exchange mechanism. So there, the green underlined mention of X25519 MLKM 6768. It's just, a hybrid algorithm using both for the first part elliptic curve cryptography and for the second part PQC. And so today this works. This works because it doesn't have too much impact on the network. On the other hand, if you're talking authentication, which is also a very important issue in TLS handshakes, well, in this case, there is so much material to transport in the handshake to public keys and six signatures that adds up, sorry, to 14 kilobytes, which is enormous. And the order of magnitude is that every added 1 kilobyte in the handshake produces plus 1.5% in latency. Those are the figures of Cloudflare. And so it's too big. It results in more than 10% overhead in latency in the network. And so Google said, okay, we cannot do that today. We cannot support such a latency. So today, if you connect to a Google server, the certificate are still signed with RSA, and so they are not quantum safe. It was just to show you that if the big ones struggle, you might be struggling, and so it's a good way of engaging with PQC to start with small projects to really understand the technology. And so finally, the keywords here in the box, the key motivation is test and learn. Both concepts are very important. You got to have training with experts that we have here in-house at CryptoNext Security. You have to test what we're telling you into your infrastructure, into the test environment that you have provided. We're not providing, of course, the environment. So we're doing that within your environment, so test ones. And finally, when we have the results of those tests, we can discuss, and everything will be clearer in your head. That will enhance your post-quantum maturity. You'll be able to specify with much more precision the needs you have to your solution providers, and you'll just be a lot more suited and mature to engage into the migration with a big M, with a capital M. Okay, so that was a kind of really big introduction, and now I'll leave the floor to Morgan for a more precise overview of the use cases we provide.
Thank you, Charles. Okay, so now I'm going to present you 3 different use cases that we deployed into customers' infrastructures as a POC, so a proof of concept. And our customers are mostly in the banking sector or in our public institutions. So that's to give you an idea of which kind of infrastructure we can have into our POC. And so the first use case is going to be the post-quantum IPsec VPN. So the idea of this POC is that we have a customer, they already have an IPsec VPN deployed in their infrastructure, and they do not want to change anything related to this IPsec VPN because they have some kind of agreement, homologation, and so on. And so they cannot directly upgrade to post-quantum cryptography. So what we are going to do is that we are going to deploy a second VPN, which will be a quantum safe VPN, and we are going to perform an over-encapsulation of the VPN exchanges, so that we can have both the assurance of traditional cryptography and also the security provided by quantum safe cryptography, post-quantum cryptography. And this POC, it works in 2 different configurations. We have first a configuration of a site-to-site VPN connection, so with just 2 IPsec gateway that we add into the network infrastructure. And we also have another configuration with 1 IPsec gateway and 1 IPsec VPN client, which is a software designed to run either on Windows or Linux, and still with this constraint of having a double tunnel and having to intricate 2 IPsec connection one in the other. And as you can see on the slide, we also provide a whole PKI infrastructure with HGPCA that we have upgraded to support post-quantum cryptography and to support all of the different kind of certificates that Charles told you about earlier in this presentation. And optionally, this PKI can be plugged into partner HSM that has been upgraded with CryptoNext post-quantum cryptography. So the second use case is the TLS tunnel. So for this use case, we are going to deploy two proxy. One proxy functioning in a forward proxy mode and another in a reverse proxy mode. And we are going here again. We are in a situation when we have a customer that wants to have some quantum safe assurance, but they cannot upgrade their existing TLS stack, either because it is outcoded in their application or something like that. And so we are going to come with our appliances and deploy those two proxies to enable another encapsulation of the TLS exchanges. Here again, you have the whole infrastructure with the PKI, and that's it. Can you switch to the next slide, please, Charles? And the second use case is the Outlook plugin, so post-quantum Outlook plugin. Here the idea is that we are going to install an Outlook plugin. So really, it looks like any other Outlook plugin that you may already have in your software database. And this Outlook plugin will perform authentication and encryption for your exchanges by email. And this will enable you to have quantum safe assurance for mail exchanges. One interesting point to note is that it does not require any new server to be deployed in the infrastructure, because we are only going to deploy client software directly on the laptop, and we do not need to alter the SMTP server in any way. So now that I have described all the three POC, I'm going to go back on them to tell you about the lessons that we learned when we deployed this POC into the customer's infrastructure. So lessons that we have anticipated or that we did not anticipate, depending on what complexities arise during the deployment of the POC. So one important point is that is about the PQC performances. So for most use cases, PQC performances are not an issue. I'm speaking about the computational performances, so the CPU usage. Because one thing interesting to note is that MLChem is comparable to elliptic curve cryptography, and is also much faster than RSA. So if you migrate from RSA to MLChem, you will probably get an improvement into the CPU usage, but the biggest overhead will come, as Charles told earlier, from the network bandwidth, because we have keys and certificates that will be much larger, and this may cause packet fragmentation and other network effects. And this is what will increase the load on your server and application. But it will depend on the type of the POC. For example, for the IPsec VPN, it is not that an issue, because you perform an authentication and a key exchange only when you establish the tunnel, and the tunnel is usually done once per day if you are in a setting when, for example, a remote worker wants to connect to the enterprise VPN. So it does not happen very often. On the contrary, if you are in the POC with the TLS proxy, then you will need to perform a TLS handshake every time you send an HTTPS request. So every time you send a web request to your server, then you will perform a TLS handshake, and this can grow very heavy. But I don't want to be scared about the TLS proxy. So I'm going to tell you that we deployed this POC into a customer which is in the banking sector, and they told us that the performances of our proxy were sufficient enough to handle something that they can have during a typical Black Friday. So everything is doable if you dimension correctly your appliance and your server. So about infrastructure integration, here again, it will be more or less difficult to perform for the POC, depending on which product you are testing. For the IPsec VPN, it has been It has been designed to work in a double tunnel setting, so there will not be a lot of difficulties with the integration. But for the TLS proxy, we may have some conflicts with other equipment functioning at the same network level, and I will go back on that in a few seconds on the next slide. But just to conclude on the integration, the main issue is that the people conducting the experiment, they are not the people responsible for the IT infrastructure. We usually are speaking to cybersecurity experts, but not the people who manage on a daily basis the infrastructure. So they don't always have a good knowledge of the cartography of their network, which means that in the future, deploying double encapsulation solutions will require a very high level of cooperation between all the IT teams. So now I'm just going to focus a little bit of what I said about the TLS proxy integration. So this is a real use case, a real experiment done with a real customer, with two real customers actually. We had a company A that wanted to establish a quantum safe TLS tunnel with a company B. And so we delivered to them two proxy, one forward and one reverse, so that they could perform TLS over encapsulation to talk with one another. And what we did not anticipate is that there was already an existing legacy proxy in company A, and it was mandatory to go through this existing proxy to get out of the network of company A. And so it was a bit difficult to adapt the POC in this situation. And this kind of situation can repeat itself with everybody and every infrastructure. So this is really something that needs to be taken into account and to be and during the planning of migration to post-quantum cryptography when it implies such double encapsulation setup. And so now I'm going to let Charles conclude on this presentation.
Thank you very much, Morgan. Very interesting. A few takeaways after at the end of today's session. So first one is, of course, two main words: test and learn. Test to learn and learn to test. Those two notions are working together, and it's really important that you don't skip this phase. You don't, go straight to the big issues of PQ migration, but you really go through this stage of learning and testing. Second one, and Morgan talked about it, multidisciplinarity is the key. We have to get many people around the table. Don't work in silos, or you can be sure that it will be much more complicated to measure and to deploy PQC in your infrastructures. And finally, the problem, we often hear that the PQC is very complex, that we don't know what it is about. The message here is that PQC works just fine. The algorithms have been designed to work very with a lot of performance. Then there's no problem with those algorithms. The problem and the difficulty resides in the PQ readiness of your infrastructure. So it's really important to understand that you have to work yourself, not only relying on providers, to really make your infrastructure PQ ready, so that it can accept and use seamlessly post-quantum cryptography, which is again very well understood and very well designed. Yeah, we are heading to the end of this webinar, and you may have asked some questions in the chat. I'm not sure I have mentioned that there was a chat in the webinar. If you have any question, please don't hesitate to ask them in the chat box just on the top right-hand corner. And just while you're writing some questions, just wanted to tell you that this webinar is recorded, and then that you will get the replay in your email boxes as soon as we can send it to you. So I see a question. Someone is wondering, how do pilots really enroll? What are the different phases of proof of concepts? Morgan, can you get this one?
Yeah, sure. So POC are usually structured in the two different phases. So there is a first phase about really something that is more theoretical lessons to educate experts working at the customers about post-quantum cryptography. So a bit of some theoretical insights on post-quantum cryptography and also on post-quantum protocol, because maybe that post-quantum TLS is not exactly the same as a classical TLS, and it's also true for IPsec. So there is first this first theoretical phase, and then later we actually deploy the POC. We give the POC to customers, and we help them deploy it into their infrastructure.
Okay, thank you very much, Morgan. Another question we had this morning with the French version of this webinar regarding certificates. So we said in the presentation that we could test all the certificate formats because the PK, the key factor PK we're using, we have enhanced it so that it supports all types of certificate. And the question is, what is the most the most suitable certificate for those box? Is there any format of certificate you could recommend?
Yeah, so retrocompatible certificates could appear very appealing because we promise you that it will work in your infrastructure and you don't need to do anything. And that's true, you don't need to do anything to use them as classical certificate. But if you want to use them as post-quantum certificate, then you will need to do some parsing of the post-quantum extension. And this may prove more or less difficult because maybe you have a certificate parser that is not used to go check into the extension of the SN1 format. So it's usually easier to go with other kind of certificate like composite certificate, because it functions in a way that is very, very similar to classical certificates.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you very Morgan for your insights. I think we are done with questions, so I thank you very much for your attention. I hope this webinar has been of interest to you. Please don't hesitate to reach out to CryptoNext Security. We'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. Bye bye. Have a good day.
Thank you.